As many of you know, and maybe you were lucky enough to be there, I was invited to be a part of a live with Dr. Tad Stormer a few days ago discussing Appalachia. Ever since that discussion, something has been bothering me, and it's been in the very outer edges of my mind. And this video might be the first of many, but this video right here, I think, is the reason why the discussion had me a little flustered. Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm known here on TikTok and on YouTube. My channel is very small. I'm just beginning it as Historically ADHD. And I am someone who trained in anthropology, which focuses in archaeology and bioarchaeology and historical archaeology, as well as I have a deep love and passion for the history of North Carolina and the history of Southern Appalachia. So let's get into what was bothering me that day.
I do not say butter. I would not say it for anything because I'm not a Southerner. And the R's I do use are different from what one would hear in the Midwest. So I went to NYU for my PhD degree. The students I met there could never please me. I seemed to have something soft in my voice that reminded them of Southerners. Yet I was not Southern. They could tell that. I did not have the knife-like quality and nasal inflections that they had observed of speakers from the Midwest. It never occurred to them that I might be from Kentucky. And when I finally got around to saying to them, well, I'm an Appalachian person, a Southern mountaineer. You've heard of the hillbillies, haven't you? I'm one.
That was Mr. Cradis, or I should say Dr. Cradis Williams. He is known as sort of the face, the founder of the Appalachian Studies movement here at App State University, or Appalachian State University in North Carolina. While he is not the sole proponent or the sole resource or foundation of Appalachian studies, he's considered to be Mr. Appalachia because he was so vocal and honest and open about his family's past, which definitely in the early 1900s was very much a risque thing. Dr. Cradis was born in 1911 in a tiny, tiny, tiny little community called Canes Creek Community. And that was a part of the Big Sandy Valley of eastern Kentucky. So he was from eastern Kentucky portion of Appalachia. He spent his whole entire life being fascinated with the history, the folklore, the oral traditions of the region and of his family, very much like I was growing up. I was taught about the history and traditions of Appalachians from my adoptive mother, my Aunt Rose. Dr. Williams also felt very conflicted about this idea that he needed to quote unquote rise above his background. There's always been a very intense sense of shame of being poor in the mountains. And let's be honest, through the entire nation, the culture of America, being poor is seen as morally bad. That is says something about you morally. While I believe that there is a lot of things that Appalachians need to feel a sense of shame for what our ancestors did, not necessarily ourselves, but for what our ancestors did, and that is the treatment of Black and Brown people within our community and the treatment of the Native Americans at our hands. However, it is important to say, while that is true, the treatment of Appalachians by outside communities, by communities that have power, also is incorrect as well. Nobody has to be right. Everybody can be wrong. Victims can also be perpetrators of prejudice. And to think that they're not misses the complexity of the system. Now, Dr. Keynes receives his first degree at the University of Kentucky in 1933. He eventually goes on to gain his PhD and goes to work at Appalachian State Teachers College in 1942. He is wildly popular because of the stories he tells in which he talks, and he draws a very large crowd of people. He becomes so popular that he is named the director of the graduate school at what is now known as Appalachian State University. This would lead to the formation of the Center for Appalachian Studies, being established there in 1978 to coordinate academic programs, research, and do public outreach in the Appalachian Mountain region. It is important to state that this center does not merely focus on history, music, or culture. It focuses on the entirety of the Appalachian region itself, which includes the people, the culture, the history, but also the economic situation, the ecological problems and difficulties that face within the region. It is meant to be a center of help, a resource for all of Appalachia. Now, some of you may have noticed that I tend to talk with my hands, and that's because I have to slow down my speech. The faster I talk, the more my accent comes out, and the less likely you are to understand me. Now, the following video is from Dr. Williams, and I believe was recorded in either 81 or 82. And it was done by basically the public access network of Kentucky in the 80s. Now, he's going to be using a term which is no longer used. It is called the Scotch Irish. This term has been given up in favor of a more historically accurate description of either Lowland Scots or the Ulster Scots inhabiting this region. But still, I will not be speeding up this video like I typically do for my other videos, because when I slow down my speech, I have to slow it down so slow you can understand me. I would ask you to please be patient and listen to Dr. Williams and the way he speaks to get a true appreciation of the Ulster impact on Appalachia.
People are descended from pioneers on the border ready to charge into the mountains at the time of the American Revolution. The largest component, subnational component, I think, in the population of Appalachia is the Scotch-Irish contribution. The culture of southern Appalachia was determined largely by the presence of the Scotch-Irish. The Germans surrendered their language. The few English people scattered among us came from different sections of England and had no homogeneity. So in time, they were speaking like their Scotch-Irish neighbors. So that the speech patterns and the rhetorical tricks, the facial expression, the pause, the inflections, all of these things in Appalachian speech are a heritage of Scotch-Irish influence.
Williams.
It is because of these Appalachians who got their education and was able to not hide who they are, but to be loud and proud of who they are, we are able to have all this wonderful research. And it has provided a key foundational information within a lot of anthropology, especially linguistic anthropology. For example, let's take a look over at the linguist program at NC State, which is in Raleigh, North Carolina. As recently as 2015, NC State has been working NC State has had the initiative to talk about the importance of dialect and respecting all the various dialects in North Carolina. It might be surprising for you to know, but North Carolina is one of the most dialectically diverse regions in the country. And a large part of that dialect, that speech pattern, is the Appalachian dialect. NC State has created several different programs and outreach to help not only higher learning professors and communities to understand this population, but also on the ground level, helping K through 12 learn and accept the different accents that make up North Carolina and the pride behind it. By the way, if you want more information on North Carolina accents, let me know and I'd be happy to make a video about that.
He grew up in the mountains here and likes to keep in touch with what he calls his hillbilly roots.
The things that differentiate this noble kind of a dialect in a way, though it's often laughed at, are these characteristics, I think. No one says hair the way we do. We say her. Similarly, we say bar, far, mar, dar.
But we'll insert ours in words. Ought is ort. And we readily tell you what you ought to do. Water is water. We send our representatives up to Washington. And we wash our faces in water. If we're pious people. A woman is a woman, and she cooks a breakfast. Then we move ours over. So apron is an apron. Apron is an apron. 100 is 100.
Old-time people out in the mountains, when quizzed about their ancestry, will say, well, you see, we was Irish. That means Scotch-Irish. The first comers didn't call themselves Scotch-Irish. They had come from Northern Ireland, and they were using the old-fashioned pronunciation, which a few of us continue to use, and they called themselves Irish. They said was, which was, and still is, in Appalachian dialect, both singular and plural, were is subjunctive. We was Irish, you see. And then you go on to say, they was three brothers. That's folklore. You can begin to doubt at that point the factual accuracy of what he's about to say. Because all of them will tell you that they was three brothers. Now, when I was coming to school, a 100% Appalachian boy, speaking the old dialect that the teachers wrung out of me after I got away at school, I said that it was two. Nobody ever bothered to tell me what that meant. I thought it was an illiterate use of the word they, T-H-E-Y. Tain't so at all. That has no relation whatever with they. That is the old Northern English dialect word found in the old manuscripts as T-H-A or T-H-E with a stress over it, and it meant, would you believe it, there, T-H-E-R-E, which is exactly what we continue to say. And then we say, law, I don't know. Do you know what that law means? That is the Appalachian dialectical form of what you read in the Bible as L-O. Lo, there she stands. Lo, ain't she pretty? Same word. We also...
Now, Dr. Cradis Williams dies May the 11th in 1985, but his work, as well as the work of many other Appalachians who faced an incredible amount of prejudice and classism from their fellow academics, would go on to advocate and become what is known as the Appalachian Studies program. Now, the Appalachian Studies program, like many other cultural studies programs, is more than just an appreciation and celebration of the history, the culture, and the language of the region, but it is also used as a way to advocate for those in Appalachia who do not have access to the educational resources that some of our families sacrificed a whole lot for. We realize that we are the lucky ones, and that it is our responsibility to go out and educate everyone on classism in America and how that impacts Appalachia, and how it also impacts the Appalachians who are of slave descent population or free blacks who came into the region to settle, or the Latinx community, which is the largest growing community in Southern Appalachia. Without this advocacy, you see things that is happening in Western North Carolina today. And it is why we must dismantle all systems of oppression. That includes the patriarchy, that includes systemic racism, and that includes the classism that has been inherent in our society since we decided to become farmers. And that is why activism is such an important aspect to this studies program. Because we know it helps when people know that Appalachians have a harder time getting access to healthcare. It doesn't matter their skin color. All Appalachians have a harder time getting access to healthcare, to education, to resources. States will forget laws and not pass recommendations from the government and scientists in order to help protect these people from environmental factors. So it is our job to keep speaking up and yelling, because Appalachians deserve better. All Appalachians, no matter their ethnic identity or racial descriptor. Appalachia needs us now, and we need to be advocating for her. I apologize. I know this has been a long video, much longer than normal, but I appreciate you coming and staying this far. It is important that we advocate for Appalachia, especially now in Western North Carolina with the crisis going on. We have to keep everyone understanding the true power of the neglect that Appalachians have faced for many, 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 many generations. Thank you for watching, and I will be posting more about the history of Appalachian studies. Thanks. Again, I'm Kelly, and I'm historically ADHD.